Hello and welcome to Building High Performance Cultures, a weekly series where we talk to executives from top organizations about how we built high performance cultures and how they're leveraging their culture as competitive advantage. I'm Marty Parker, the President and CEO of Waterstone Human Capital, and my guest today is the CEO of the Standards Council of Canada, Chantal Guay. Chantal, welcome to Building High Performance Cultures.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to participate.
Delighted to have you here. So a little bit about Chantal. So Chantal was appointed the Chief Executive Officer of the Standards Council of Canada, SCC, in April of 2018. She had previously served as the Vice President Accreditation Services at SCC, where she revamped the organization's business model, process, and quality management system with a focus on customers and conformance to international standards and obligations. She also held the position of Vice President of Standards and International Relations at SCC, where she was responsible for the organization's national and international standards development program. Now, prior to joining SCC, Chantal was the CEO of Engineers Canada, the national organization that regulates the practice of engineering in Canada and that licenses the country's professional engineers. I have a lot of PEng friends, so that I know that, and they're very, very committed to staying involved in engineering in Canada. Now, Chantal, for people who aren't familiar with the Standards Council of Canada, tell us a little bit about the organization, but also the culture you have there.
Thank you very much, Marty. So the Standards Council of Canada is a federal crown corporation, and we celebrated last fall our 50th anniversary. And we're really Canada's voice on standards and accreditation, both on the national stage, but also on the international stage. The work we do touches almost everything that is around you. The food you eat, the clothes you wear, the wonderful cell phones you use, everything that makes your life easier is touched by standards and accreditation. And they are invisible. They are the invisible shield that allows you to go about your day with peace of mind. I want to talk about a very topical example of what we do. Personal protective equipment, COVID-19. Prior to the pandemic, Canadian manufacturers of a particular type of mask that is super important in hospitals, the N95 mask, relied on certification bodies from abroad and standards from abroad. When the pandemic struck and spread, the government of Canada called, if you remember, they asked a lot of manufacturers to pivot and start producing personal protective equipment, including those famous masks. And they came very quickly. Everybody pivoted, and they started producing masks and then connected with those certification bodies abroad, and were told that they were focusing on their domestic demand and they were going to put on a 2-year wait list. Obviously, very important consequences for Canadians, for healthcare workers. So we worked very diligently within days with the regulators, with the standardization network to ensure that we would not have a break in the supply chain. And those incredible manufacturers that had pivoted were going to be able to manufacture and get their masks certified so that people working in the pandemic would be protected. So that's a simple example, but an important one of the importance of standards and the standardization network in Canada. The foundation of standards is based on collaboration, bringing stakeholders together, tackling difficult issues to find solutions that are better than the sum of the parts. And this is something that is very reflective of our processes and our people, and ultimately our culture. At SCC, we embrace a people-centric culture that fosters growth, opportunity, and follows the principles of compassion, flexibility, and agility.
Well, that sounds simple, but in order to pivot that fast, to set the to allow others to produce, be approved, and market when it's not just mission critical, but I would say life critical. That's a pretty important thing. So kudos for that. Now, Chantal, what is your view on the role of a leader when it comes to sustaining corporate culture? And what or who, in other words, were some of your influences in developing that view?
I mean, the tone comes from the top, right? I think it's very important that the leaders set the tone for culture. And at SCC, we have a very caring culture. We have a culture that is inclusive. And I often repeat to my staff, I am a member of the team. I have a particular role, right? I have a particular set of accountabilities. But in the end, I walk alongside with them to support them and help them along the way. And I firmly believe that that's important, that the leader sets that tone. When I look at what is success for me is crossing the finish line together. We've learned something, we've accomplished something that is important to us. And whether they are individuals or organizations, when you are working with leaders, they have to inspire you, right? You will follow them if they speak to the purpose you might have, right? If your purpose is not aligned with that of the organization, be very difficult for you to follow. So for me, it's very important that the leader speaks and acts based on the purpose and that it resonates with me. And if it's the case, I'm going to run marathons for that leader, right? And I think that that's certainly the culture we demonstrate when we say we care, and we walk the talk. And we also want to make sure that employees are very welcome and feel safe in coming and knocking on the virtual door or coming here in the office and saying, there's an issue, how can we resolve it? Or I have a need, an idea, how can we grow it? And I think that, so what are my inspirations? My mom, maybe to start with, but great people around me in my network. Obviously very important for me to continue to grow as a leader. So I'm always looking for new best practices, new ways to improve. I find inspiration in my own team and in my network, and obviously continuing to grow and learn with other leaders around Canada.
I know that SCC went through a significant culture transformation just a few years ago. So love you to talk a little bit about that process, what prompted the change, but also what were some of the key steps that you took in order to enable that transformation to take place?
Okay. I would say that in the past, and I was part of that culture because I've been at SCC for almost 9 years, I'd say that we did not put a lot of emphasis on growing people, developing people, attitude in general, and emotional intelligence. So, I think that, for me, without people, we can't achieve anything, right? It's our most important resource. I like to think of the team as a garden because I love gardening, but I also love to think about my team as our team as our treasure, right? And I think it's important to have a culture that it's very important that they are the treasure. So following my appointment in 2018, I put a lot of emphasis on cultivating that caring. My mom was extremely caring and empathetic. She was a nurse. And I think that I basically put in place the good type of soil and the good environment for people to grow here and to become the best that they can become. So we've put in place the foundation towards a very people-centered culture and worked with employees and leadership, of course, in developing that process. We created the programs, training, coaching, messaging. Really, a lot of the conversations that we have within the leadership team is always linked or attached to the culture. So that's our filter all the time. Our strategy is filtered through the culture and the values that we want to demonstrate internally, but also externally. Standards is about collaboration and bringing people to the table. If we don't have that culture within an organization, I'd say we're an imposter, right? So, and also very important for me that we walk the talk. We have all worked for people that pay us a lot of lip service. So that's something extremely important to me. And I think that the transformation that has happened in the past 3 years is obviously toned from the top, but I've done this obviously with the entire team. Everybody at SCC is a part of that culture that ensures that we can flower, we can flourish, and we can cultivate and make sure that people grow.
Wow, there's a lot there. It's great. I mean, you've said it now twice that standards are really about collaboration, and that really makes me think, because we think of standards as a structure and a process, right? And something we aspire to. But when you think about it as a collaborative process and it brings people together, I can see the link to bringing people first. And I want to come back to that in just a second. But through that transformation and how far you've come, what have you learned about the link between culture and purpose as a result of those changes, Chantal?
So we strongly believe that an empowered and engaged workforce, like our treasurer, has to have all the tools, right? And it's essential for us that they understand what the vision and the mission, and that with that, we can move forward together. The most common trait of our top performers is that they are motivated based on the purpose, right? Based on what we can contribute to Canada and Canadians, ensuring health and safety and supporting competitiveness and economic growth. I mean, Marty, standards are in every sector of the economy. They're everywhere. So, you might love the digital piece. You might love AI, or you might love food. We're involved in all of that. So you can find your path. And if your desire is to contribute to Canada and Canadians, there's a great opportunity at SCC. And we find that more and more when we hire people, that's what they come to SCC for. And obviously our top performers collaborate very well with their teams. Again, this is basics. This is the foundation of standards, and also very important, obviously, move forward and achieve some goals. I think that our work culture demonstrates the sense of purpose, which again helps us retain and helps us attract. I can tell you that 9 years ago when I joined SCC, it was not easy to attract people at SCC. But it's changed a lot. And I'm very, very happy that we can actually attract those great minds, those great people that want to contribute to Canada and support Canadians in all kinds of areas.
That's fantastic. What a great purpose. Now, SCC is one of the growing number of organizations, and we're fortunate with Canada's Most Admired to see a number of these, that's really putting a premium on soft skills, or in other words, emotional intelligence. In a variety of things, but perhaps even in its recruitment program. So talk a little bit about why you've made that shift and what the impact has been on your hiring practices.
Yeah, I think there's been tons of research, Marty, done about why people leave organizations, or why people, new hires fail. And for us, you can teach skills, like technical skills, you can teach them, but attitude and emotional intelligence, that's tougher. So, you need that, especially in the collaboration context, you need that interpersonal skills. You need to be able to sit down and have a point of view, but be able to listen and to reach, a middle ground, a place where we both agree. I mean, standards are consensus documents or consensus concepts at the core. So for us, it was something that was very important, and we've included that in our performance management. So now we have objectives, but we have also done a very deep work on defining competencies and behavior that we're expecting. And they're linked to the technical skills, but also to the soft skills. And I think it has helped us elevate this notion that you might be, I mean, I'm a PN, right? I might be a great engineer, but if I cannot work with people around me, you know, what am I good for, in the sense of, you know, again, in the context of standards, and the work we do is in collaboration with tens of thousands of people every year. So we have to be able to do this. And we found that by putting in place that, you know, those competencies and integrating them into the performance management was a key for us. It has helped us a lot.
Wonderful. Now, engagement is a theme that came up repeatedly in your 2020 Most Admired Corporate Cultures Award submission. And it should be noted that the Standards Council of Canada is a 2020 winner of Canada's Most Admired Corporate Cultures. Absolutely. But talk to us about why an engaged team is so vital in a high performance culture.
I don't see life happening or results happening without that. I mean, for me, again, it's at the core. Staff is our resources, right? So empowering, engaging to make sure that we're aligned, we understand the vision, we're committed, it speaks to our core purpose. I think it's the only way, right? If you're not interested, or it doesn't speak to you or calls you, change jobs, right? And we firmly believe that healthy, engaged employees, along with obviously a very strong workplace culture, we have to cultivate the culture, right? That's like a relationship. You have to work at it. And we believe that's the secret recipe for organizational success. And we feel we've been very successful. We recognize that strong connection between engagement, wellness, right, and performance. And we acknowledge the importance of that connection. And it's a strategic priority for SCC. Organizational excellence, wellness, engagement, we measure it. My board wants me to measure it. I mean, they don't have to ask me, I'll do it, but that's very important. Like that culture aspect is pervasive in the organization and top priority for the board, as it should be. We feel that, you know, employees that succeed, that have a purpose, feeling good about their contributions is you know, the perfect formula to be successful. And we celebrate the engagement of our employees. We have all kinds of trophies going around. We have rewards every year. We have obviously years of service, but we've paid a lot of attention to put in place a good recognition and reward that goes, have a beverage on me, to you know, a big part of almost a bonus linked to a very important project for teams. So I'm proud of that program, that reward and recognition program.
No, it sounds like you are, and of your team, which you've spoken of a lot. Now, we all know that the past 12 months, can't believe I'm saying 12 months, but 12 months working on 13 have been very challenging. But they've also put a spotlight on a number of issues that are very important, including mental health, you know, diversity and inclusiveness. Now, as a leader, Chantal, what's your role when it comes to championing these discussions or these issues with your team and in the workplace?
Top of mind. I mean, you know, when the pandemic struck us, very, very quickly gathered as a leadership team and talked about what will be the principles or the values that will guide all our next decisions, right? And the first one was compassion. We wanted to be compassionate of the situation that was happening, and we wanted to be flexible, and that's the workspace or workforce of the future is flexibility, and then being very agile. And my role was to be championing those discussions, right? I think that it was very important, and it's still very important to be transparent, to acknowledge what's going on, to be vulnerable as a leader, saying, I'm not turning my camera on today because I'm like zoomed out, like, right? So I think that it's very important being inclusive, being compassionate, and showing that we care. and continuing to use those values. And we have spent a lot of time, and we've done a few pulse surveys to also understand what was the level of anxiety that existed within staff. And our way to address this was to be extremely transparent and communicating a lot, so that there was going to be some predictability, at least from the work perspective, because we could not control the rest, right? You could not control the schools, we could not control the lockdowns or not, but that everything that had to do with work, we wanted to make sure that people knew what was expected of them, but also people knew what was coming. So we do now a weekly newsletter to the staff. We have a town hall every month. We used to do it at a different frequency, if you will. And the other thing is, we also agreed that, okay, we're pulsing, we're doing a survey on staff. What we're hearing, we need to act now on it. So example, the last pulse survey we did, a lot of the anxiety was linked to the workload, right? So within the few days we received the results of that survey, we took action. We started discussing how do we review priorities, and how do we ensure that what we're going to focus on between now and the end of fiscal is what is essential. So I think that that has made us be able to pivot very quickly at SCC, but also maintain a very healthy workforce. We talk about mental health all the time. I think every message I have every week has a part of mental health. We've changed our allowance for gym. We've taken all kinds of steps to make sure that whatever we can do to help the colleagues, that I have colleagues that have 5 kids at home. Like whatever we could do to help those colleagues, we were doing that.
Boy, that resonates with me, because I had 5. I still have them, but they're not all at home anymore. So I can really relate to the 5 kid scenario. But that's an incredible focus that you have on the individual and your team members. But if you had to kind of focus on one thing, Chantal, what impact what impact or biggest impact has the global pandemic had on SCC? It has actually put a spotlight on the need for, like, the incredible importance of standards and accreditation. Like the work we do, I gave you the example of the masks. There's all kinds of other examples, but it has really put a spotlight on this invisible infrastructure that we call the quality infrastructure that exists in Canada, that everybody relies on. Well, when it's not there, things go south, things go wrong. And it has opened, I mean, our tagline is open a world of possibilities. Well, for us, COVID this year has opened a world of possibilities. We've been able to make a difference in very important files, and we will continue to do so. So it's been a very good year in a sense. In terms of, obviously, staff, it's been a difficult year. There's no doubt it's been a difficult year. But I'd say that although we're far, like we're digitally, like we're physically removed, what I found the most interesting is that I have been visiting a lot of homes. I have been invited inside a lot of homes. And when, for example, my director talks about her kids, or 2 boys, I've seen them now. So I feel a lot closer to a lot of members of my teams, and we do something nice. We've onboarded 20 new staff since the pandemic started, and I do a CEO coffee. It's just to be able to chat, right? Say, who are you outside the work, right? Who are you? What do you like to do? What's your hobby? And I find that I have been able to create good relationships already with all the new staff just by doing that. And they're invited into my home. I talk about my daughter. I talk about gardening, which I love. So it's strange because we've been physically apart, but at the same time, I've been invited inside the homes.
And I think I have a deeper understanding of the situation of each staff. Because
Wow.
I've been invited there and I've seen the kids, I've seen the tantrums, I've seen them.
Right.
And our, and our approach from the first day was, hi, how are you? And if you need to leave now, just leave, just turn off your camera. Like, we've been very respectful and again, compassionate about the situation. No, it's nobody's fault that you have to deal with your 5 kids at the same time while trying to work. We're going to do everything we can to help you.
Yeah, that's terrific. And it's true. In some ways, we're feeling more disconnected, but we've learned a lot more about how we can connect. And it's taught us a lot about empathy. We were speaking at a meeting this week about what's the one thing that the pandemic has maybe made you better at. And I had to give this a lot of thought. But I think for me, it was empathy, which is sometimes a weakness of mine, I'm not afraid to say, because I see people now. I understand a little bit more. And sometimes it's just been feeling it myself a little bit. And so when I see it in someone else, I recognize it.
Yeah.
Chantal, what have the past 12 months taught you about your culture at SCC?
I think that it has just highlighted that the foundation or the path we've decided to take was the right one. A culture focused on caring for those that you work with, caring for those that do the work, caring for those that believe in the purpose of the organization. So, for me, it's just confirmed we had the right foundation, and also that our approach to this crisis, compassion, caring, flexibility, we're due to review our values, and I think we will embed a lot of this going forward.
I'm certain that we will as well. What is the one benefit that you can think of working in the public sector that you wish more people knew about? Or maybe it's better stated as one myth about working in the public sector that drives you crazy when you hear about it.
Yes, and I used to believe that too, and I have some experience that were not super exciting within the public service, not at SCC, but in other organizations. But certainly at SCC, we don't have hierarchy. Like, I come from the private sector. I worked in public, but I come from the private sector, and I'm used to working in matrix. And I've established this here. And we are extremely nimble. So if you're somebody that thinks that it takes forever for an organization that is like a crown corporation to respond, I've actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, got feedback from colleagues because we had responded within 12 hours and they were falling off their chairs. I said, what do you expect? This is a crisis. You need the information. We're going to get it to you. So for me, the misconception that we're slow, that we're not nimble, that there's 15 levels of decision-making before you can get your idea to work, not at SCC.
Very well said. So let's look ahead. We've talked a lot about what you've done and how far you've come and the impact of the pandemic and the culture that you've transformed. But looking ahead, 3 or 4 or 5 years, what do you see, Chantal, as critical to aligning your people to your culture and to sustaining this high performance culture that you've built?
Yeah, so for me, the word is flexibility, right? Throughout the pandemic, throughout the surveys we've done, we've realized that there is a lot of good in having a workplace that is flexible. We had started on that path, on that journey, but for particular reasons, not as a strategy overall. And certainly that's the path forward for us. We know that people will want to come to the office is if they're going to come and collaborate and brainstorm and do creative work. They're not going to come to the office to sit at their desk and work on their own. So I think a lot of the work that we're going to continue doing, because we started already thinking about a transformation of the workspace, but also the workforce. And then we need to make sure that with that flexibility comes all the tools so that managers can actually manage a distributed work team, right? So I think we're already on the path, and it's to put it in place. We thought we're going to be able to come back to the office like part-time in September. We don't think so. I mean, so the next 3 to 5 years, I think, is going to be implementing that flexible workforce, workspace, and bringing with that all the tools that need to come, right? So technology, right? The right policies, the right training for managers, so the performance evaluation can continue. Where we have started on outcomes results, like outcomes-based evaluation, we need to push that forward. So these are the things that I think will continue. And I think a review of our values, just based on our experience and what made us successful through the pandemic.
Well, and I think values and culture will change for all of us and evolve as we add more flexibility and we deal with the changes that we've all now made and embedded as habits. It's interesting, you and I are separated at birth on the idea that flexibility in the workforce is going to be about, and the workplace is going to be about, collaboration and culture building. Because some people want to come to the office, it's habitual, it's easier to work than their current residences, let's say. But really the value is in building culture and in collaborating. And it's going to take courage from leaders to ensure that happens too, because there will be others of us that say, hey, I'm just as comfortable now working wherever I lay my hat. So I think there is going to be change, which we're going to have to adapt to as leaders, but ensure that culture building collaboration is consistent with a flexible work environment.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. And we're brave, by the way, we have courage. we're not afraid to try new things, to explore. We have a foresight unit. I mean, we're not afraid to experiment and look into the future and look around to see what might be best practices or new ways to do work. We're good at pushing the envelope.
Well, Chantal, you're looking right through my screen into my next question, which is really about the future again and about trends. So what trends do you foresee coming in building high performance cultures?
Well, I think that we talked about an important one, which is flexibility, right? And for me, why? So that we remain resilient, right? So we're going to have to continue to be very flexible, very agile in order to be able to survive and show preparedness, right, in the new reality. So for me, resilience is going to be a very important theme. And I think it's coming at us. I mean, it's there, right? We just have to hop on that train. It's going to be for the better anyway. I think that the second part, and we're very much involved in the 50-30 challenge, and we speak a lot about diversity and inclusiveness, but we think that there's going to be a need to move beyond the basic concept of diversity. I think that workplace inclusiveness is really the next aspirational level, and that's something that we're thinking deeply about and that we want to continue to improve. We want to make sure that all employees continue to feel valued, respected, and supported, and that we have the best workplace to do that. So, I look at, important decisions that the federal government has made, like the 50-30 is a good example. But the other one is create a group that will develop standards just based on accessibility, right? That's unheard of, right? 2 years ago, we're embarking on that. And for us, the important connection to actually standards is this concept of design for all, right? I can design something wonderful for everybody I can see and can hear, but it's not going to work for those that cannot see and cannot hear. And there is 25% of the Canadian population that are disabled, right? So we've been, I think, very exclusive when it comes to disabled people. And it's something that in our work environment, but also in the work we're going to do in the standards where we need to focus on. And I think third, and then I think it will remain, I don't think it's a trend, I think is essential, is ensuring that we connect our staff with connect their sense of purpose to what we do as an organization as purpose. I think it's fundamental. I have a lot of younger, I'm a baby boomer, so younger employees in the organization. And if you talk about not their calling, I'm looking for the word in English, but you know, what ignites them, what makes them like passionate, it's very much, you know, touching on their purpose. When you talk about the work you can do at SCC that touches on their purpose, they're incredible people, incredible. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on. And as we're transforming and evolving our vision, we want to make sure we bring the whole group together and that we build on those great ideas and those great individuals that have an incredible purpose in contributing to Canada and Canadians in one way or another.
Chantal, you basically just wrote the program for our Building High Performance Teams and Cultures Leadership Development Program that we offer at Waterstone, which starts with understanding communication, our own styles, and adapting our styles to our team members, creating an environment of psychological safety, having accountability. But the key thing is aligning individual meaning to organizational purpose, and then recognizing contribution and not just outcomes. And you just described it so well. You were worried about finding the words. You found many words, because it really is about that alignment, about understanding what builds, what people's passions, desires, and loves are, and finding out how to take advantage of that. And there's nothing more flexible than designing someone's role around what they love, if you think about that, as simple as that concept is, and that can help the organization and more importantly, help them grow. And so I think you've really got this figured out quite well. And I'm going to ask you one final question, and that is a piece of advice. If there was just one piece of advice that you'd give to a young Chantal or a young person, a younger Chantal, I should say, or a young person or new leader who's just starting their leadership or high performance culture journey, what would that be?
It's difficult to say one. I'll say two, okay? My first advice is to believe in yourself. Believe in what you're passionate about. Believe in the purpose that you found inside of yourself. Believe in your abilities and your skills. Lead with your head and your heart. And the second piece of advice is humble self-confidence is the cornerstone of exceptional leadership. It allows you to manage and inspire others with assurance and direction and still be welcoming and listening actively to what they're saying. So I think that obviously authenticity is key, but humility is so important. And I have met incredible people, you know, all along my career. And I mean, recently I'm on a board where most people are Order of Canada people, right? And they are the most humble people I've ever met, and they've done incredible things for Canada. So please, self-confidence, but humility with it.
I just want to recap a couple of things we talked about today, how people focus that the Standards Council of Canada is and what that has meant, that is really a nimble, fast-moving, and act now organization, that kind of your view and where you see the future is really about a flexible workplace, workforce, and aligning, you know, individual meaning to organizational purpose and trying to kind of develop the best out of people. And I think as we go down paths like 50-30, which I'm a huge believer in, that we'll all be able to maybe create a higher standard, but also figure out that standards are about collaboration, because that's new to me too. And I think that is a wonderful way to look at standards. But the best thing that I took out of this, and I'm going to paraphrase just a little because you were so incredibly eloquent in saying it, is that humble self-confidence is the key to exceptional leadership. Humble self-confidence is the key to exceptional leadership. And what I saw today is you can be really passionate and still self-confident and humble. And we saw that from you today, Chantal Guay. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Marty. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, this was terrific. So I want to thank you again, Chantal Guay, the CEO of Standards Council of Canada, for joining us. And join us next week for another episode of Building High Performance Cultures. And in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about the subject, please visit waterstonehc.com.